Hello world, and welcome to this edition of Tech on Fire with Blaze. Today we're going to be looking at Azure Blob Storage and how you can use Azure Blob Storage to create a simple backup solution on Microsoft Azure. Simply put, Azure Blob Storage is just a way of storing any kind of file or data on Azure. And we talk about files, that could be like an image file or a Word document, it could be a text document, it could be an image for an operating system or anything like that, or it can be just some kind of output from a program, just the serialized output of an XML stream. It can be the serialized output of a stream from a video chat program. It can be any kind of data that is really something that you could write to a file that you could also write to something on blob storage. So as it goes, blob storage is not strictly for files. It can be used for files and any other kind of data that can be output from a program and written to a file. You could write it to blob storage as well. It's very rare that a product will actually deliver on something that is simple, easy to set up, and easy to use. But blob storage is actually one of those things that is very simple, very easy to set up, and very easy to use. When Azure Blob Storage was introduced, it only had one tier that was used for everything, but as it matured, they saw the need to introduce different service tiers into Azure Blob Storage, and these are Hot, Cool, and Archive. The first tier available on Azure Blob Storage is the hot tier, and it's used for frequently accessed data. It's more like what Blob Storage was when it first launched. There's storage costs associated with hot storage, and it's more expensive than the other two tiers, but there's no cost associated for reading data out of hot storage. The next tier is one that we call cool storage because we cool it off a little bit, and it is used for infrequently accessed data. Now, there is a storage cost that is less expensive than the hot tier, but there is a cost for reading data out of this tier. The purpose of this tier is for temporary backups or some things that might need to have backup retentions measured in months, or something that needs to be in a backup form that is readily available but doesn't need to be accessed every day or every week or even monthly. The next storage tier on Azure is even colder than cool, and it's what we call archive storage. Now, archive storage is used for long-term offline storage. Now, the storage costs on this tier are the least expensive of the three options. And the reason why is the storage here is an offline media that isn't readily connected to any kind of device that can read it. So with this option, when you write to archive storage, you have to go through a rehydration process in order to read that data back to your device on premise or wherever you may be. And there is a lag time between the initial request to read that data and the time it's actually available, and that can be measured in hours. So there are costs associated for reading data out of archives, as well as getting that data out of the storage vault and making that available to you for reading on your local device and restoring that data wherever it might be restored to. I'm here in the Azure portal, and I'm going to be using Azure portal to create a blob storage account that I'm going to be using to create a simple backup solution on Azure with blob storage. So I'm going to come down here to storage and then select storage account. Now, this will take me to a blade that I can use to fill out information about my storage account. I'm going to create a new resource and group and call it blob demo. And for my storage account name, I'm going to say Blaze, if I could type correctly, blob demo. And I'm going to select a region that's fairly close to me, East US. And I can select premium or standard. I'm going to select standard, but premium is good for workloads that need high throughput and low latency. So the SLAs on premium are much better for things like big data, for AI, and those kinds of workloads that you're using blob storage for. The account kind here, I have three options. I can select a storage v2, which is general purpose, which has all the kinds of storage available, including blob storage, table storage, storage queues, and so on. And so does just storage v1, but v2 is used for most of the common workloads now. Unless you need v1, select v2. Blob storage only has available in it blob storage. It does not have table storage, file storage, or storage queues associated with it. For replication, I'm only going to select local redundant storage, LRS. Now, these geo-redundant storage and read access geo-redundant storage allow you to replicate data to other Azure regions or zones in Azure, and it gives you more availability of your data. However, data on Azure is always written 3 times in a local data center. So in the East US 2 region, I'm actually going to get 3 copies of my data written to various devices in Azure, so I have high availability inside the region. But if I wanted to make a DR plan or a BCDR plan, and I needed to have my blob storage available in the event of a failure on Azure, I could select read access geo-redundant storage here. Now, access tier, as we saw already, I have cool and hot here. This allows me to set the default for my storage account. And I'm going to select cool in this case, since I'm going to be using this for an archive solution. Notice I cannot select archive here. Now, archive I have to set after I've actually uploaded the data to something like a hot tier or a cool tier, and then I have to go back and make that archived here after I've actually uploaded that to Blob Storage. Now, once I have all these things set, I can go ahead and look at some of these advanced options. Now with security, I can require HTTP or I can require it not be on HTTP. I just as a general rule enable this. And then virtual network access, I can bind this to a actual Azure VNet to only allow a specific Azure VNet to connect to this storage account. And this allows me to have security baked around this so that I'm not exposing a bunch of data to the internet. And I can also have things like data protection for soft deletes, and I can also have data lake Gen 2. Now, data lake is used for big data workloads, so you would want to turn on data lake Gen 2 if you have a big data workload on and you're going to be using that in conjunction with a storage account, which I'm not going to be doing here. I can add tags to this if I want to, but I'm not going to tag it. And once I have everything up and set, I'm going to go ahead and click create and let this create, which will only take a few seconds to do. Now that my resource has been created, I'm going to click go to resource, and I'm going to come down to my services. Notice I only have blobs available in this storage account. I'm going to open up blobs and create a container. A container is a place to stick blobs in the context of a storage account. And I can set the access level, be it anonymous reads for blobs only, or I can do it for the container itself. Since this is a backup solution, I'm going to be using just private access for this particular blob storage account and container. Now that that's created, I need to get an access key for this or an access token for this. And to do that, I can do this through the Azure CLI. I can do it through an app called Storage Explorer, which is linked here, or I can do it in the portal itself. I'm going to use the portal method here, and I'm going to come down to shared access signature. And what this will grant me is a shared access signature for the entire blob storage account. So I'm going to select blobs. I'm going to say services, service containers and objects, allow all these permissions because I'm going to need them for my blob storage backup solution to work. And I'm going to select some date in the future, such as 2100, so that this will be arbitrarily long for the storage backup to actually work on. Now, once I have the permission set and the start and end of the particular policy set, I can click generate the SAS token and connection strings. Now I'm using a signing key, which is available here in access keys, and I have two, a key 1 and key 2. I'm going to use key 1 for this. If I was to revoke key 1, any SAS token that is using key 1 as the signing token would be invalid at that point. Now that I have these things set, I'm going to click generate SAS token with connection strings. Now, what I have here is a connection string that I can use for several of the SDKs that are available for blob storage in the various languages like Python, Node.js, C#, and so on. Or I can just get the SAS token itself, which is really just the part of a query string, or I can get the entire SAS URL, which I'm going to copy and use in just a moment. I'm here in a text editor, and I'm looking at the command for a utility called AZCopy. Now, AZCopy is a utility for uploading and downloading data from Blob Storage. Now, this sync parameter here allows me to sync data between a local folder and a destination container on Microsoft Azure Blob Storage. So what I'm going to do is edit this command to use that SAS URL that I just copied from the Azure portal. So I'm going to paste it in. But I do need to edit this a little bit to specify the actual container that I created so that my files will end up in the appropriate container on Blob Storage. And now I don't have to edit this folder because I've already created the folder and copied some files into it. So now that I have this, I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to come down here to my command prompt. And I'm going to show you the contents of this folder. It's a bunch of images I used from a recent shoot I did with my drone of a friend of mine's farm from 400 feet in the air. So I'm going to paste that command in and run it, and this will sync the contents of this folder to that container on Azure. Now, I haven't actually run this yet, so it's the first time I've run it, so it's actually going to upload everything to the actual storage account and that container on the first run. As this runs, you can monitor the activity inside of your command prompt. You can see the throughput, and it will tell you how many things are pending and how many things are total, and so on. As this runs, you can monitor the activity inside of your command prompt. You can see the throughput, and it will tell you how many things are pending and how many things are total, and so on. Now that the actual job is completed, you can see that I have uploaded several files to Azure Blob Storage by way of AZCopy.
If you like this content, please consider visiting us online at www.wintellect.com, and there you can find about services that Wintellect offers, including training and consulting services. Also, please consider subscribing to this channel by clicking on the subscribe button and clicking the bell icon to get notifications when new content becomes available, and also comment down below. You can also follow me on Twitter at @TheOneMule, and also follow Wintellect on Twitter at WintellectNow or at Wintellect. We are constantly posting things about Azure-related technologies and things related to software development. You can also reach us by email at consulting@wintellect.com. Until next time, thank you.